Memphis is the home of the blues, rock and roll, and Earle Farrell.
From the Collierville Square to the mighty Mississippi, the Earle Farrell for Memphis show is all about good things that happen across the Bluff City and the people who make Memphis cool.
The Earle Farrell for Memphis show is made possible by our title sponsor, Southern Security Federal Credit Union, and by Kathy Thurman Edwards, State Farm Insurance.
Plus, Diane Kimbrough, Lady Di, your insurance PI. Also by Dive Shop and Dive Ventures nationwide. Jim Karras Chevrolet with George Gully. Napa Cafe Memphis and Glenda Hastings. Phoenix Unequaled Home Entertainment. For Memphis Magazine. The Live at the Garden Concert Series. And the Orpheum Theater Group Memphis. Thank you to all the sponsors for making this possible.
And now, coming to you from Lansky Brothers, Clothier to the King, inside the world-famous Peabody Hotel, with the heart of a cowboy and Memphis in his soul. Ladies and gentlemen, here's your host, Earle Farrell.
And thank you very much, and welcome into Lansky's, Clothier to the King, and back by popular demand, Scott Fueling with Phoenix Communications, because I had so many people after the last show when he was here talking about home theaters and everything. But the one thing I want to know more about cutting the cable.
Yeah, it's a big topic right now.
It is, and you know, the thing is, you talk to people and they say, well, I've heard this and I've heard this. There really isn't a definitive place you can go and says, how do you do this?
No, there really isn't. And we just work with them on an individual basis to get it taken care of. But you need something that'll stream the channels, and you need to figure out which channels you need. And, you know, you could go with a DirecTV stream or Xfinity stream, or you can even just pare it down to the individual channels that you want to use.
Well, otherwise you're looking at getting a digital antenna and hooking it to each TV, or running the leads to all TVs and have one big antenna in the attic. The bottom line is there's no easy way to do this, and which is why you started out like you did. In fact, I ran into a friend of yours you grew up with, and now this is a friend, so I don't know if it's true or not, but he said you actually started in high school in your garage selling stereos and stereo components. Is that...
No, that's not exactly true. I started when I was in high school, but I was doing more DJing school dances, recording plays, things like that to start with.
Well, that's why I didn't mention his name, because he was obviously a liar. So I saved him again. But it is interesting how things that happened to you when you were very young, those elements stay with you and turned into a career for you.
Yeah. It really is. I was doing the installation in residence 40 years ago, before it was really even a business. And we were building a lot of the devices we needed because we didn't have the ability to go down to the local supplier and pick up whatever. We had to just build it from scratch and make it work.
Well, now, then we're going to show some slides of what you do now. These are, you build everything from 30-seat theater in the home. This is 7 seats, and but you can add other chairs. You really can turn it into anything you want. All you got to do is sit down with them and say, "Tell me what you want," then we'll come up with how much it's going to cost, and you can see we add chairs, take chairs away, I guess.
Yeah, the size of the room helps. You got to really know what you can put in there, and if you put too much in there, it gets cramped. You want to have it open so you get that theater feel to it.
Well, in so many cases, you just got back from a stint in Colorado. They're building this house, but so one of the rooms in this house is the entertainment center, entertainment room. So you can actually have a part in the construction at the beginning. Other situations, you're trying to adapt a system to something that already exists.
Yeah, a lot of times we don't have the ability to build out a room the way we want it, but we can do acoustic treatments, we can change carpeting, we can change the lighting up. So there's a lot of things we can do in an existing environment to make it more theater-like.
And it's people think you got to have 12 chairs. You don't. I mean, you can go in and put up. Well, in fact, here's a good example: 2 chairs in a room, and that's what most home entertainment. Maybe a bean bag on the floor. Or...
Yeah, the bean bags are becoming pretty popular for grandkids and young children too.
Well, and it's the thing is, as I've learned, you can think what you want about putting together yourself until you start trying to mix components. Amplifiers with speakers with the television you bought, And I've had to ask for help every time you start getting into it, because it's like I'm kind of launching a rocket, as a matter of fact.
Well, if you want to do more than just a TV in a room and you want to get a real good experience, you have to plan it out, and you have to use the right equipment, and you also have to create the right environment. So many times people will want to make a theater when they really just need a media room, which is a more casual viewing environment.
This one I like. This reminds me of Ron Olson, who's a big sports person. He'd love to have 3 monitors with 3 different programs going at a time.
Yeah, and now we can even put on a big screen. We can put 4, 5, 6, 8 TV channels on it.
It just divided up on one screen.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it is amazing to me, though, that what can be done. You look at some of the network programs, and it looks like just one big screen, but those are actually flat screens placed together to make one picture.
Right.
But you could do that as well, right?
Yeah, you can.
So you can make it, was 90 inches, is that as big as they come by themselves?
No, you can get up to 140 inch in a display now.
And what is the difference between the curved monitors and just the flat panels?
The curved monitors were kind of a fad for a while. There's not that much to do with them now.
And they cost a lot more.
They did, and they were a little bit harder to deal with. What that was for is to widen the viewing range, so people on the edges of the seating could actually see the full image better.
I saw the thing last year. It was in Dallas, Texas, I think in Frisco, where the Cowboys are based. And it was a big room they built, and you look out the room, and it is actually it was the University of Texas playing somebody. It was the shot from the field, and I guess they had their own cameras there, and it's almost a 360 image. And then all the seating is in like stadium seating. You feel like you're in the stadium.
Yeah.
Have you seen any of these yet?
Yeah.
I mean, that is amazing.
Yeah, it is. It's like the Sphere out in Vegas.
Yes, that's the way it was described to me. It's like the Sphere.
Yeah. A lot of interesting things, especially with surround sound now. Atmos in the home, you get all the different channels, so it not only comes at you from behind and sides and front, but over the top, so it really can draw you in.
There are a lot of people that have had their own home theaters, so to speak. I mean, they went out, got a good sound system and amplifier, and maybe they've updated their flat screen 2 or 3 times, and they feel like they'll go to somebody else's house and it sounds better, looks better. A lot of times it really is the HDMI, the quality of it when it was put in years ago, the sound system, the amplifier can be something that's not up to par anymore. But so really having just you guys come out and take a look at your system and analyzing it, you can make a big difference to what they've already got.
Yeah, a lot of times if we just upgrade the processing, it can make a huge difference in the experience for the consumer.
When most people, and we talked about this before, most of your people come to you through referral.
Yeah.
They've seen somebody else's system, they go, who did this? And that's where you get the call.
Yeah.
When most people do call and do a verification about what they want, make sure that it's something you guys do, or?
Yeah, we do a phone interview just to make sure that we're all on the same page, and it is something that we would want to take on. Most of the time it is, because they're coming from existing clients and they seem to have similar tastes.
Do you ever get in there and the client's so picky that you say, you know what, I'm walking away?
No, not really. Now,
that's good to know.
I will get into a situation where the client has unrealistic budget expectations and we have to walk away.
Because they want to get a big show for no mo.
Yep, that's it.
Yeah, and well, that's when you get it, because I mean, just like when we do production, and somebody says, this is what I want, I go, well, this is what it's going to cost. They say, well, can't you do it cheaper? And I go, I'm not going to do it cheaper.
Right.
I mean, that's because
exactly.
You built a half buttocks system, and it's going to sound and look like that.
Yep.
So you want to do something that reflects what you do.
Yeah, and we can do it at several different levels. It's not that everything just has to be stratospherically expensive, but you can't really cut corners and cut out stuff just to save a few dollars, because that takes away from the experience and the performance. I
have seen these systems that people put out by their swimming pool, actually part in the waterfall in their swimming pool. How does that work, and are there really such a thing as a waterproof flat screen?
Yeah, there's weatherproof flat screens, televisions, weatherproof projection equipment. And obviously outdoors you get weatherproof speakers, so yeah, you can do it. The only problem is it's not a very contained environment, so the quality is a lot less than it would be if it was in a room.
Because you're actually using the room to echo and that's where surround sound really comes in, because you're bouncing it off.
Yeah, it creates the acoustic model for it. And then you have the projection or the television and the light levels lower in a typical room versus outside.
Do you ever get calls from, we were at a restaurant last weekend where it was a new restaurant, had a lot of wood paneling in there, and it's very, very noisy. Do you ever get called in by restaurants or different places to say, can you come soundproof my room because of the noise we got in here?
We really only deal with the acoustics in our theaters, but we can turn them on to people that specialize in handling that and can take care of it for them.
Because remember when I was with the Orpheum and they made this producers club, it had nothing but glass, tile, and wooden ceiling. And when there's 10, 15 people, you couldn't hear anybody because it was so
like
loud.
being in a cement mixer.
Yeah. So what we did is got big foam rubber things shaped like an arch and cover it with black material and put them on the ceilings, and it stopped it. It was amazing.
Yeah. There's a lot of different approaches with acoustic panels, egg crate, things like that.
When you go in and you test the system, is there anything, or do you put soundproofing in the walls themselves?
When we do a full theater, we generally float the room inside a room. So they'll have the outer room, and then we'll do joist isolation, which are basically rubber channels that go over the floor joists.
So no vibration.
No vibration.
Wow.
So there's limited transmission out of there. We've done rooms where you're in the next room, you can't even hear it at full throttle.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of planning it out and getting it executed properly.
Because I've been by some cars on the streets, and my car's vibrating when we pull up next to them. So it can be a problem if you're in the same house and you got a really significant system.
Yeah, especially when you start talking about a performance system.
Right now, how far out are you booked?
It's hard to say booked because we have timetables with construction and everything else. So we usually keep a book of business that's at least 1 or 2 years out.
Wow.
But we always have time to fit other projects in because of their timetables.
Construction stoppage where you're waiting for them to finish something before you can continue, because there's early things you have to be in on. Then you don't come back until they finish some other stuff, right?
Exactly.
And too, a smaller project, if somebody just wants you to come put in a flat screen mounted on the wall, put up the components in a nearby closet and a sound system, that can be done, is it, a day or two?
Yeah, a couple of days generally will get that. And we can usually fit those in pretty regularly.
Especially if you're here, because this is where you're based.
Yep.
Yeah. Scott Juling, give them a phone number where they can call you and book their big entertainment center.
Okay, 901-624-0940.
All right. Well, I love talking to you, and I love showing what you do, and it's a fascinating business. And I guess for you too, it's fascinating because you never know what's going to walk in the door and say, "Here's what we want."
Yeah, and it's always a different approach. Each customer is individual. They all have what trips their trigger, and that's what we try to zero in on, so we can make sure we're meeting their expectations.
Well, get Scott to trip your trigger. All you got to do is give him a call. Thank you, Scott, for coming in.
Thanks, Earle.
All right. Up next, Paul Shanklin is in the room. He's got his Lansky's jacket on. Come on up, and Scott's gonna switch out, and this is the 1, 2, 3 shift. And there's Angie over there. Hey, Angie, how are you? You glad to be back from Scotland? Oh yeah. Well, kind of. Just in time for the summer heat. Mr. Shanklin,
hey.
looking very Lansky this
Very
afternoon.
Lansky. They picked out something that goes very well with the shirt. I don't know about the buttons, but usually have a tie in front of it. But
Angie, does he not look good in that jacket? I've sold a lot of them, as a matter of fact.
that's what I bought when I was overseas. I got.
You told me that.
Yeah, the thing over there is Harris tweed.
Yeah.
And so I spent half the vacation looking at the outdoors and half of it looking for Harris tweed.
Well, I got a sneak peek at all the photos you sent. Rob has put them on his hard drive, and we're going to start bringing those up. There's Beth. Beth, are you getting somebody another jacket? But how long were you in Scotland?
We were there 20 days,
20
and 17 different places we stayed, and just kind of went. We had been to Edinburgh before, but we had never been to the Highlands. So this goes with the jacket.
Oh, it does.
And so we go, yeah. So we went to the Highlands and went all the way to Orkney, which is the islands way to the north, and saw a little bit of everything.
It doesn't like this. This I was amazed at. I've never seen a picture of that before.
Yeah, it was on the 3-island Tourette's basalt, and it's up and down the coast.
Zoom into that, Rob.
But that place in particular is I'm trying to think. It was an Oban. That's outside of Oban. It's a 3-island tour. That's Staffa, and there's a cave you can go into there, but they had closed it because they were putting new railings in, so they were, we couldn't get off the boat to see that.
So did people actually live on this little island?
No, it's there's a smuggler's cave in there.
Always a smuggler's cave.
Yeah, well, it has to do with Bunny Prince Charlie, and they hid him here and they hid him there, and there's a lot of that, a lot of legend, probably
lore.
Just a lot of smuggling. So.
It's always been a problem.
That's always a problem in the UK because they have a lot of taxes, and over the years things get smuggled in.
And this, I looked at that and I thought that could be Tennessee, the Tennessee River.
I know, and the color of the water that's actually the color. That's coming out of Skye. We went on the NC 500, which is the North Coast 500, and so it's. Kind of like a trail that people have made out of all the different roads, and you follow the NC 500, and it goes right alongside the coast, and you're in and out and seeing things like that, and it's just the water's beautiful. We thought it was going to be like really dark, murky,
like dark blue.
Yeah, we thought it was going to be dark. Oh no, they have sandy beaches.
Yeah,
and,
look at that.
And white sand, and they also have black sand. They have the thing that was interesting to me was how much the mountains changed and how much the scenery changed, because you think it's just going to be the same. Well, it's like you'll think you're in northern New Mexico, and then all of a sudden it'll look like Switzerland. It changes, or it'll be flat and no trees. And
is it a lot bigger than you thought it was going to be? Well, you've
not
been there
so much
before,
bigger, because it's like Tennessee. It's like I don't know. All of England, I think, is about 800 miles long, but it's long and kind of narrow, and so it's like Tennessee turned up. Straight up and down. Yeah, and it's not far to go across it, and then maybe 300 miles long. But we clocked right at 2,000 miles in 20 days.
Did you drive yourself the entire time?
Yeah, I drove myself. Yeah, well, and Angie too. Yeah.
You didn't have a problem with the left hand?
I had this idea that it's the monkey see, monkey do method, which has served me well through life.
Follow somebody?
Do what everybody else is doing. Yeah. If they're driving on this side of the road, be on that side of the road. Problem was sometimes the other monkeys weren't there, and I would pull out automatically, especially in the morning when I'm just kind of waking up. I don't know, man, and take a right, and I'm on the wrong side of the road, But it's the left-hand turns that are easy. It's the right-hand turns that are hard. And so it's just inverted. And eventually you kind of get used to it. When I got back, I was still kind of going, okay, now.
Yeah, where am I?
What do I do? Yeah.
The history, I think, and the fact that everything you see, there's ancient ruins
everywhere. And if we stopped for every castle, we'd still be, on the first day.
Which is the thing I loved about moving from Texas to Memphis, because Tennessee has a lot longer history as far as define historical places, buildings.
Right. All you had was Buc-ee's.
No, we had old Indian campgrounds, and Buc-ee's didn't come along until a lot after that.
Right. Well, it's true, and even in Tennessee, if you go to Middle Tennessee, they've been there longer than we've been over on this end. My parents grew up in area around Union City, Dresden and Latham and Martin area, and nobody was settling there till like the mid 1820s.
Was everything either a church or a castle? Because this is obviously an old church.
It's an old church. What's left of, and that was in St. Andrews. They've got some things kind of roped off there, but it's the ruins of the St. Andrews Cathedral, and it was huge, absolutely huge. And the fact that these things, they haven't been touched since it was like. The history of it was like, well, it was burned then, they rebuilt it, it was burned again, and then the Protestants burned it one more time. And they had a lot of fighting over there about a lot of things, mainly religion, but sometimes just hair color. I don't
Was
know.
World War II? I know they bombed the Blitzkrieg of England.
Right,
but
right.
Was Scotland a target of it? I know that, and you're going to talk about that in a minute about the Italian prisoners.
The Italian. Yeah. Well, they had their ships were to the north off the Orkneys, and that's where they had their, because they didn't want to be on the east side. They wanted to be able to maneuver wherever they needed to go. So, and they wanted to be away from France. You didn't want to just be over the line from France.
Yeah.
So they had them up there, and they were stationed there. And they also had prisoners. They had the Italians that they had brought in, and they wanted to make a chapel out of one of the Quonset huts.
Tell us what we're looking at here, because I saw the shape of the Quonset hut in the back.
Yeah, it's just a regular, kind of Quonset hut thing, and they asked if they could have a chapel, use this particular building for a chapel, and that they would take whatever things they had and paint, and so it's been preserved. But they built it during the war when
Look
they
at the
were
interior.
there. Yeah. It's beautiful, and all that metal work toward the front, toward the altar, is just junk metal that they had around the place. And somebody was a metal worker, somebody was a painter, and they all this is, it's not real tile. That's just paint to look like tile and relief and everything else. So it's beautiful, and they didn't have anything else much to do, I guess. So they were out of the war.
They were prisoners of war.
And we invaded Italy earlier than D-Day, of course, and that's where my uncles were actually there. So
that is incredible, but it is amazing what they did. In fact, have you ever seen mess kit art?
Oh yeah,
and canteen art.
Well, they said some of this was some of the candle holders were made out of beef tins.
Yeah,
and they had, and you couldn't, without looking at it closely, it looked like fine metal work and out of beef tins. So, and they've preserved it and keep it up.
Is this a house?
This was on the Orkneys, Orkney Island. It was it's the Maychow. I think that's it. Anyhow. This is like Iron Age people that had their huts were in the ground. This is by the ocean. They were probably further inland, but the ocean at one point in the late 1800s, it eroded it away, and they could see it. They were on this estate. Nobody knew it was there. It was filled with sand. But they excavated it and saw that they had where they slept and everywhere else. It was very well preserved. And the people that owned the land knew what it was.
Sort of like cliff dwellers in this country.
Right, but in the dirt, because it's so cold up there.
And so that also got them out of the line of the wind, because they're down below ground level.
Right, because it's cold up there. There's no trees. Up in the Orkneys, there's no trees. And if they bring one in, maybe. But it was extremely cold. The Norse people actually occupied it before it was really claimed to Scotland.
Now, this is not Stonehenge, but it's very similar to it.
Yeah, there's and around, we don't know what any of this means. We do know that parts of it line up with the sun at the winter solstice. The burial areas have a door, and the only time the light will shine in is
a
certain day, and the winter solstice when they had their religion was somehow based on that, we assume. Same thing with these. We don't know what it means, but there are several. There's more than one area of standing stones. And this, again, is on Orkney. It's one of the better preserved. One of them got knocked down by a farmer because he got tired of plowing around it. and everybody almost wringed his neck in the neighborhood, but that was back in the 20s.
If you come across something like that in this country, they would say it was a wreck.
Right. Yeah.
Those stones were knocked out from
Well,
under
they know
a bridge.
they weren't. They know they're not from right there,
yeah.
And they know they're incredibly heavy, and they've been moved, many, many miles, because it's a particular stone, and so it's been moved many, many miles, and they don't know how exactly.
Same thing with the pyramids.
Yeah.
I mean, those stones came from that country, but
right.
a long way off.
Well, they put them on rollers or whatever, but logs or something. But there's no logs in Orkney. So how do you roll?
Well, not now.
And you couldn't just get some guys. I guess you could get some guys and just flip them until they get, So that's what we would have done in high school. This is the northernmost point, this lighthouse, in Scotland. It's so we went there, and they still have an active lighthouse there.
And when the places you're staying, are these bed and breakfast or are these hotels?
Mostly bed and breakfast, and of course, I when I go on vacation, I eat what the locals eat. So a lot of blood pudding and haggis.
Blood pudding.
Yeah, I don't ask questions. I just assume that's a nickname. I don't think it is, but it's they have. We also went to a tasting at Ed and Bain Lodge, which is a really neat place. It's like built in the 1500s. It's one of the oldest buildings on Sky. And we stayed at their lodge. And
is that the
that's
lodge?
Right, that's it. And
oh, wow.
It's beautiful.
Beautiful.
And the people were so nice. And that's the thing. Scotland, the people just generally are incredibly nice. Do
they like Americans?
Yeah, they like America. Well, here's the thing. We go to a parking lot, and you have to pay and get a ticket and put it in your car. Well, I was at the thing to pay, and I didn't have enough money. So I'm a pound short. I send her back to the car to get some actual pounds, so we put it in there. And a guy walks up. I said, "Look, I'm sorry. I'm waiting for my wife to get back, so go ahead and pay for this ticket." And he goes, "No problem." He stuck a pound in there. I said, "Well, she'll pay you as soon as she gets up here." She got up there. And he goes, "No, y'all are guests."
Wow.
Yeah. So welcome to Scotland.
That won't happen in Memphis.
Yeah, that's not going to happen in Memphis. It's like, don't pull your wallet out.
Don't park your car there until you pay.
Yeah, and that's a puppy we rented. So
you rented?
No. We went to a sheepdog demonstration, which was absolutely fantastic. He must have had 20 dogs there.
Wow.
Some of them were puppies, and of course that's I'll give it to you for only 900 pounds, and hopefully somebody will fall in love with it. And he was a real deal shepherd. I mean, this was a real deal farm, and he had all those.
Was he shearing that goat right there?
He did, yeah. Well, it's a sheep, but he sheared it. He had some of the people there come out and shear it, and the puppies were they're not that old, and they're already interested in herding that sheep around there. Mom and Dad are over there looking at it, so we got a good demonstration that was very worthwhile, a lot of fun.
And what were Angie's thoughts? Of course, both of you had been there before, so it's not like you were.
Well, we've been in Edinburgh, which it's this was like going out where there's not anybody much. So I mean, in the towns, yes, but when you get out, there's just not a lot of. There's not a lot of small towns. There's a lot of small little burgs, but not.
And do you
not
see,
very large.
Like in America, you suppose a small town. There's a church. There's houses. And then just 7-Elevens, tire stores.
And the golf course.
But I mean,
they have small golf courses all over the place.
But is it more quaint than it is commercialized?
Yes, and everything. You don't see a lot of new buildings going up. They're repairing the old buildings, and maybe a tax thing. I don't know, but there's not a lot of. It's not like when you get outside the cities. There's not a lot of modern. Bedroom communities. It's just
good.
Town is bedroom communities.
I know the last time I was in Mexico, we were in the interior and we're driving along, and I got to tell you, it was like being in the United States.
Right.
4-lane interstate highways.
Right. Well, these were some of this we went down was single track roads.
Wow.
So you had to about every 100 yards would be a place you could pass, and there's rules on what you do, and you can pass on right or left, but you have to know what you're supposed to do, and nobody does. So we all just kind of work it out, but. They call this the crazy season when the people come from other lands, and so they know we're not so great at driving in their country. But
it is amazing. I remember I was in the Bahamas one time, and there was a guy there who was a Spanish Basque, and Spanish Basque doesn't. And I would have lived in Mexico, speaks some Spanish, and it doesn't sound like any language you've ever heard. And yet these people are having people from all over the world come there, and they're able to figure out how to communicate with them.
Well, I had a little bit of trouble communicating because, at one point I had a girl with so many rings and pins in her lips that they were clanking. And
you felt like you were home.
They were clanking against her nose and her other lip, and I was like trying to go. I was just kind of like amazed at just watching the show, and I'm not listening. It was hard to pay attention, and she had a heavy accent.
Is this one of the shows?
This was one of the. This was actually a piping band in Pitlochry. And this is this is just something they've been doing for 100 years.
Wow.
And they put on a show. They have a piping band they've had around for 100 years, and they put on kind of a local talent comes on and sings songs. The kids come out and dance, and it was amazing. We just kind of lucked up on it. And that's what's best about vacations for me is that it's not the things you plan, because not everything you work out. We wanted to see the Harry Potter train, okay? It goes across this viaduct thing, and it's iconic and everything. And we're thinking, well, we'll go by there and drop by, 30 minutes before it starts, and we'll get to see it go over. We get there, and there's an incredible crowd. The parking lot's full. It's 20 pounds to park.
Wow!
If you wanted to park, which that's a pound cost you $1.37, so you can get an idea. It's like $30 to park, and you can't even get into park, and then the train never showed up. Anyhow, they had a diesel train go by. We just got off the road somewhere and just watched, and some diesel train came by, and it wasn't a steam locomotive.
It's a lot like this, but different.
Yeah, you have to imagine a little bit. Yeah. It's okay. It's iconic, but you're not gonna wait all day. So.
Well, traveling this time of year and with where the world is now, was traveling good, the international traveling?
Yeah, actually it was really good. We didn't have to take our shoes off, which was a real relief to me. For
TSA.
For TSA.
Right.
We haven't been on an airplane in a long time. So
knew,
they're getting a little bit better at that. And, we're thinking we're going to take all our medicine bags out because that's what they used to do. You got to count all your medicine, how much, how many ounces is this and that. It was really easy. We got through just fine, and all the luggage came back with us and everything. We both got. Somebody thinks it's RSV. I think every flight originates in like Nairobi or West Africa, and we got some sort of beriberi or something. But I got sick, then she got sick. But we had lots of drugs with us already, so we were able to deal with it. Yeah, I had antibiotics because I've learned if you travel,
take antibiotics.
Take antibiotics with you, and I got so that I was like sweating through at night. And
we found that out in Mexico. Everybody gets a little bit of the turista, but me.
Yeah.
So they sent me out at 2:00 in the morning, going up and down these streets in San Miguel,
trying to find something.
Find a store, and there was these little shops. I go in, I go, Pepto-Bismol.
He's not here.
No, senor.
Pepo's not here.
Now, everybody that knows Paul Shanklin knows that he was on the Rush Limbaugh show for many years, but he's always kind of been involved in entertainment, and he has an incredible birth of voices that he does. Did you do any of your voice? Did you do Barney in Scotland? Because I would love to see if they knew who Barney Fife was.
I did. We went to where there was, the show Outlander. There's a certain area where they actually filmed where they had standing stones. Well, there weren't really standing stones there, but they filmed on top of this hill. It's a nice view, and with some trees and other stuff. And so, when she was going up there making a video, I was talking as the Scottish farmer. Get off my land, you scared my sheep. They won't make as much wool if you keep that noise up, that kind of thing. But I know, not for the locals.
Well, for our listeners, do Barney for me, because I was telling Rob and Beth that work with me. I said he does the best Barney.
Well, you see, the thing is, for the best, for your best looking policeman, you want to wear plaid. You see, the criminals, they respect a man in a plaid jacket, having worn a lot of them themselves. So, anyways. All right, I'm getting you in trouble.
No, you're not.
Yes.
I love it. In fact, I would, if I could do Barney, I would do it a lot more. I mean, I'd be coming to people.
Well, when I have a little bit of a cold, I can do Andy.
Yeah.
But Barney, you beat all. That's which I heard that growing up a lot.
Yeah.
Paul, you just beat all. Yeah.
Well. It is,
or as Tommy Swain would say, Paul, you're mean and hateful. So I earned it.
Have you got? I know you do a Trump.
Yes, I do.
And
we're getting ready to do. We may do something in Iran. We may not. I'm thinking about putting a casino there, and maybe just a great big American flag. That's what I want to do. I want to blow a hole and put a base for a brand new American flag right there in the middle of Iran.
Yeah, you put up a couple of big flags outside the White House today.
They haven't been, yes, but we had a couple left over. They went, and the Iranians have not been very nice. They have not been very nice.
And beautiful.
And beautiful, yes. They're not very nice, and I can't tell if anybody's beautiful because they're all covered with
dust,
black cloth and dust. But
just has some strange. Yeah, do you really want to pick a fight at this time? But we'll see. I hope all that works out.
I do too.
Yeah.
I think everybody does.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
let's end all of it for a while. We've had
Well,
enough.
it's just been going on, and maybe they won't have to spend so much time having, Death to America chants.
Yeah.
Maybe they can just say, "Hey,
But you never,
it's all over," and
saw
the girls can come out and not get beaten with rods, for putting on their makeup the wrong way or
not
at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's glad to have you back. And
Good to be back.
And
All in one piece.
glad you had a good trip and only were sick for a couple of days.
Yeah. Well, I said, it's like first time we went, I got some sort of thing, and then the next time we go overseas, she gets walking pneumonia.
Your turn.
And then this time, it's togetherness. We both got it.
Well, but you said overall you were delighted with the food.
It was great. Yeah, the food was great. We actually went to a tasting thing at the Edinburgh Lodge, which you pay like, oh wow, for the thing, and there's little bitty pieces of food, but it was, and that was.
Oh, look at
that's
the food.
it. Yeah, that's some of the food. That's not the Edinburgh though.
I see fish and chips.
Yeah, oh yeah, we had fish and chips
and bangers and eggs.
Yeah, oh yeah. The breakfast. I mean, breakfast is like an all day thing, and I quit my diet. Gained 7 pounds, but we were walking so much I didn't gain too much weight. So, but all the things my cardiologist said to avoid.
You didn't.
No, it was just for a couple of weeks. I mean,
you could survive.
How's
that.
he going to know?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, next time he sees
Dr.
you,
Patel, everything's fine.
He'll call you Mr. Potato. All right, Paul Shanklin, thanks for coming by.
Thank you.
And I'm glad you had a good trip. We're going to take a quick break, and then we got Glenda Hastings from Napa Cafe. She's got some good food, and we're going to talk about it coming up.
Hi, I'm Dawn Grader, President and CEO of Southern Security Federal Credit Union. We're the proud title sponsor of the Earle for Memphis show, coming to you live from Lansky's in the world-famous Peabody Hotel and celebrating all of the great things about our great city, Memphis, Tennessee.
Hi, I'm Glenda Hastings, owner of Napa Cafe, and I'm so proud to be part of the Earle for Memphis show, streaming live from Lansky's from the Peabody. We will be showcasing not only Napa Cafe, but some great restaurants around town. We look forward to seeing you.
Hi, everyone. It's Diane Kimbrough, Lady Di, your insurance PI. And I'm here to tell you about the new podcast that Earle for Memphis is doing. And we're doing it downtown live from the Peabody, which is behind me and next to the Rendezvous. And we're going to be talking all things Memphis, but we're also going to be talking about health insurance because that applies to everyone. And I can help you in every area. So I look forward for you listening to us and learning more about what we can do for you in Memphis and how I can help you with your health.
Hello, Memphis Mid-South. And first, I'd like to thank you for visiting with Earle Farrell Memphis today. And we want to support him just like you do. I'm George Gully, one of the sales managers at Jim Carey Chevrolet. We've been in business here in Memphis for over 75 years. I've been associated with the company for almost 25. And I'll help you find the right car, truck, or SUV here at not only our Chevy store, but also Buick, GMC, Nissan, Subaru. We can help you find that right car. Keep watching Earle and come see me. Thanks so much.
Hi, I'm Kathy Thurman Edwards, State Farm, and I'm so excited to be one of the sponsors for the Earle from Memphis show, broadcasting live from Lansky's at the Peabody. And I'll tell you all about what we've got going on at our office. Gift cards for quotes. No purchase necessary. I'm better looking than a lizard.
Hi, this is Randy Wright from the Dive Shop and Dive Ventures in Memphis. We've been in Memphis over 64 years teaching people to dive, snorkel, and swim. We'd love to have you come join us and have some fun. We're also a part of the Dive Ventures group with 18 locations across the country, stretched from Phoenix to Vienna, Virginia. Please give us a call. We'll be able to take care of you at 999 South Yates in Memphis or call us at 901-763-DIVE.
Hi, I'm Brett Batterson, President and CEO of the Orpheum Theater Group in downtown Memphis. We are so pleased with our partnership with the Earle Farrell Show and very happy that he is broadcasting live from Lansky's at the historic Peabody Hotel. We're all here to make Memphis better.
Hi, my name is Jameson Todd, and I'm the director of Live at the Garden and the Radiance Amphitheater. And we're so excited for our 25th year of Live at the Garden here at the Memphis Botanic Garden. We've got a great lineup for you this season, so come on out.
Hi, I'm Olivia Wall, Director of Marketing and Communications for Memphis Botanic Garden and Live at the Garden. We've had Earle Farrell right along the way for the past 25 years, and we can't wait to talk more about the season this summer on the Earle Farrell for Memphis show.
So come out to Live at the Garden. Our first show is on June 21st.
Hi, my name is Scott Fueling. I'm president of Phoenix Communications here in Memphis. I'm really proud to support Earle Farrell's show, as is everybody else on the team. We love Memphis, and we love doing things to promote Memphis, and we can't wait for this to get started.
And welcome back. And joining me now here at Lansky's Brothers is Glenda Hastings with the world-famous Napa Cafe. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Do you like it here?
I love it. This is something else. I've been here maybe a couple of decades ago, and I don't think I had near the appreciation that I do like I do today.
Well, you know, our taste develop, and there's so many people. Hal was telling me one day that there are more people from the United Kingdom that come into the store in Memphis than come from East Memphis, because people just don't think about it. But once we started bringing people in, and they're going, hey, I love this store. And the people we've met since we've been here, they come from all over the world, say there are no clothes like this anywhere in the world. They have to come back to Memphis to get them. Well, you can order online, so you don't have to come here. How have you been? I mean, you went to an area where you were sick for a little bit, but you got over all that. We thought it was an ear infection. It turned out to be something else.
Yeah, you know, I do a lot of swimming, so I'm used to kind of getting those ear infections. But, yeah, it kind of lingered for a while. But, yeah.
Well, I'm glad you're better now.
Thank you.
I want to get into the story of how you got into the restaurant business, because we did it on radio, but we've got a new audience now, and I think they're going to be delighted to hear it. You were actually in medical school, or pre-med.
So, yeah. So we're going to start from the beginning,
Yeah.
and you're going to have to pretend like you don't know anything.
I know. Well, that's not hard to pretend.
Right, okay. Yeah, so, my degree's in chemistry, and I was going to be in the medical field. I had been marching to the beat of that drum for many years, knowing that I was going to be in medicine in some shape or form.
And so you had to have a job, because you were obviously going to school, but you got a job to help pay the bills.
Well, yes, actually, my job was supposed to be school. My parents really didn't want me to work. I had kind of a really great kind of cushion with that, because it wasn't like I was just taking a lot of fluff classes. My schedule was just jam-packed with math, physics, all the different kind of chemistry and the labs that go with it. So it was a full-time job.
Yeah, my college was a lot like that. I just didn't go to class.
Well, yeah.
Saved a lot of time.
Paid off just fine. I think you landed exactly what you're supposed to be doing.
So you're doing that, but so you decided you wanted to get a job, or you just?
Let's see. I'm kind of thinking about so I did. I always loved having just my own money, my own sense of self. And I wanted to have a job and work part-time. And so I kind of secretly got it. And I was working part-time at Three Oaks Grill.
In Germantown.
In Germantown, yeah.
Which is now Southern
Social.
Southern Social, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so you found out very quickly that you really like the restaurant business.
Yeah, so I now that I own a restaurant, so many things are, not a good secret. But then it was never anything I expected to be in. I was very studious and very serious, being in math and science and on that kind of path of that. So I was always studying. It was something I was constantly doing. It was part of my life. I had a book in my hands at all times.
So when you're doing this, and all of a sudden is this when they started giving you raises? Like
Oh no.
That was much later.
Oh yes. So really, what ended up? Well, actually, yes and no. Those things were happening simultaneously. I was working for Don and George, who owned Three Oaks Grill, and they really just took a liking to me, and I think I was super dedicated. I've always been that way. Whatever I'm doing, I'm like 100% in, and so nothing was different. Just because I wasn't doing school or a restaurant had nothing to do with obviously chemistry, but I still applied myself as if like I was studying for the hardest test. So every day when I was working for them, I was 100% involved. And one of the things that I was naturally good at was problem problem solving. And so when you're running a business, that's really what you're doing. I always say you're solving problems, and ideally you want to be in the problem prevention department rather than solving the problems. But
instead of the fire department, I mean, which you are the fire department all the time, but if you can, but it takes experience to be able to see problems developing before they actually manifest themselves.
Oh, absolutely. But I was pretty good. For them, what I would do is I would see something that was a challenge for an employee or something that kind of kept coming up the same problem over and over, and I would go to them with the solution. And I think that's always helpful. I didn't even know it at the time that, you don't ever want to just complain about something. You want to offer a solution.
Yeah.
And so I always offered solutions. And they really gravitated towards that. And they really championed me for that. They look forward to seeing what I thought about things.
Because believe me, I've owned restaurants, and not all the employees come up and complain and then say, but I've got the answer.
Yeah,
they just
right?
complain.
Yeah, yeah.
So you were coming at solving things, and that was very gratifying to you.
Oh, yes. I mean, I loved it. I loved, not that I wanted to see problems, but I would just see them. I remember there was one specific story that really kind of solidified my relationship with George Falls, and really kind of, I think this was the moment he really saw it. I came to him one day and I said, listen, because in the kitchen, they expanded on this kitchen, and not everything was designed perfectly. They had to work within the space. And some of the sinks they would have to use to fill up pans for water. And they would have to go all the way in the back of the restaurant to do so, when there's like literally 2 sinks 2 feet away from these cooks. And I went to him, I said, I think if you put a gooseneck faucet on it, they won't have to do that. And he just looked at me, and I remember him staring at me, and I couldn't tell whether or not it was registering. I thought, well, maybe I just shouldn't even say anything at all. And I think he said, well, that's a great idea. Well, the very next day, I come to work, and he says, I want to show you something. I come in, and he points them out. He said, in all our restaurants now, we have put in gooseneck faucets. What a great idea. And then I think there was something else that happened the next week that I offered a solution. And I remember him saying, keep him coming. And he used to call me kid. Come here, kid. What you got for me today? He really wanted me to y'all are waving at people.
People are waving at us, yes.
Oh, I love that. We have
Not
have
now.
fans.
Not now.
Yeah. So, he pulled that out of me. So I really, felt comfortable and felt appreciated. And that's just really how our relationship started.
So you progress along. You're still in school.
Mm-hmm.
And then they announced we're going to open a new restaurant. Is that when they opened Napa?
No. That's so. I'd actually stopped working for them because I was gonna go to medical school.
Yeah.
I was kind of done. I think I had really started working only a very few hours a week because it was kind of getting close to me starting that next chapter of my life.
Which was even going to be more difficult.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so what ended up happening was I changed my mind. And do you want me to tell you that part?
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
Before I went to med school, I wanted to know everything. I wanted to be in medicine and be the kind of doctor or researcher where I understood everything that had to do with science, not just the pre-med classes that you were required to take. I took advanced microbiology classes, advanced biology classes. I got special permission to take advanced nutrition classes from the department, and the nutrition department were usually only people that majored in those areas were allowed to take those classes, but I got special permission. And I really just loved learning new things and wanted to understand how it all works. So when I got to med school, I would be locked and loaded, armed with extra information, and then beyond that, have a better understanding. And at the time, I don't think I had these exact words, but I lost my interest. There was a disconnect because I was in many different buildings. I was also in math. I also took math classes every semester. My mom always wanted me to just continue that. She thought that it would really, taught you how to think. Those math classes, especially those higher level math classes, really just kept me in tune with using my brain, I guess, in a certain way. And so
I'm just laughing because I can remember when I was a freshman at Texas Tech, and they said they put a problem on the board and said, if you can't work this problem, you need to drop now. I went, close the book, I'm out of here.
Yeah, there are those problems that take pages.
But that's always, even when you first started in preschool, math made sense to you even then.
Yes, always.
It's amazing.
Yes, I loved it, and that was really, again, my mom kind of encouraging me to just continue that path. So I was in 4 different buildings. I was in the math building, the science building, and I guess 3, because the science building was all the same. I think actually, but biology may have been in a different department. I can't remember. And the nutrition building. So I spent a lot of time in all of those buildings with all of the best minds, and working with the best professors that were teaching me a lot. And one of the things that I stumbled upon was how no one was saying the same things. And it was very...
You went, hey, wait a minute.
Yes, and I don't think I even had those exact words. Like, they're not saying the same things. It was more like, none of this is making sense. This is not correlating with this. They're saying a different thing in this department than they are this department. And I lost my enthusiasm, truly.
Well, you found out about life.
Yeah.
Which is, you think that if people are in charge, they know what they're doing. And when they're teaching you something, you think that is pure truth. And so many times it's just the way they want, what they want to teach you.
You are exactly right. I did not realize that at the time. And one of the things that solidified it completely was I sought out to take a teacher's class in advanced nutrition who was teaching the med students over at UT. I waited to take her class because I don't think she taught the same class every semester. And I was in her class, and I was super excited to learn from her. And I did one of my research papers. Actually, my research in chemistry was in vitamin C. And one of my research papers in advanced nutrition class was about antioxidants. And that's a word that everybody knows now. But back then they didn't. And she really crucified me. She said, none of this is proven. These are all theories. And I remember getting so mad at her, and I said, there is so much more to an orange than it being vitamin C and fiber. There is more to food. There is more to nutrition, and I know it. And I'm shocked of all people that you would think would know. Yes. Yeah. And I left there not discouraged but mad. Yeah. Like, I was like, she doesn't know what she's talking about, and I can't learn from this person. You know?
I saw a lot of that when I first got in the news, because you started interviewing people and you think, if this is what they do for a living, they must be an expert at it. And then you would ask them questions and they'd go, excuse me, do we do that? They didn't even know, and they owned their own company.
Yeah.
So it is disheartening to find out that not everybody that is in a position of power really should be there.
Yes, and I think it too is she learned from the same system that they're still teaching to this day, and it's mind blowing to me. I can't believe that that's where we still are. But that's a whole other subject.
Thank God for RFK.
Well, right.
I saw it the other day, but they're going Kraft and Heinz or somebody's taking all of the food coloring out of all of their products within the next 2 years. I'm
in shock. I'm like, why is it there in the first place? And if you're going to do it, why are you doing it at the end of 2027? It's like, here's an idea. Just don't add that ingredient.
Stop.
I
guess they say the wheels of progress move slowly, but if we know it's bad for us, and of course a lot of us have learned it on our own. I mean, there was some kind of cocktail sauce that we used to get with shrimp. And if I ate that certain kind of cocktail sauce, I looked like somebody beat me up. I'd get these big whelps, my eyes would be swollen shut. And so, why would you make anything with red dye number 3 in it when it affects so many people? But, nobody's called them on it before. And I guess you were actually calling on your professor saying, I'm calling you on this. And that's what changed your progress of where you were going.
It really did. It changed the complete course of my life. And it was very... It was really sad because I was very passionate about it and loved it. I mean, even as a 12-year-old, 13-year-old, I loved learning about health and wellness and taking it to the level. And actually, while I was in school, I'd even kind of changed directions where I thought I was going to go in. I was very good in the research department. And I even saw myself doing things beyond just regular day-to-day medicine. I saw myself in a lab helping find answers.
Well, and if you think about it, that's what you were really good at, is finding the answers. And when they didn't add up, that's when you got mad.
Yeah.
And through research, you found out, which is what a good reporter does, is you don't take anybody's word for anything. You go and do your own research and come back and say, well, this is something else I've found. Why are you saying this? And most people aren't used to being challenged at all.
Yeah.
And you were challenging her.
Completely. And actually, one of my microbiology professors, and I'd forgotten about this, he was teaching something in DNA. And he said, they're barking up the wrong tree. And I was like, really? He said, because it was at the time, it was this was the beginning stages, especially in biochem. I remember when I first took my first biochem class, the information was like this thick. By the time, and it took me about another year and a half, maybe in 2 years to take the second biochem class, and the information had like quadrupled.
Wow.
What had transpired in the past few years. But he had said, they're barking up the wrong tree, and don't believe everything you read. And he was really, I wish I could talk to him to this day.
Yeah. It sounds like he knew what he was talking about. Mm-hmm. So you were disenchanted with where you were going, thinking now about science and research. So how did you get back into the restaurant?
So I decided to finish up my degree in chemistry because that could take me far. I could do pretty much anything that I wanted to do. Gosh, that could lead into pharmaceutical, medical sales,
sure,
anything in the chemical world. And in fact, I had offers. Really, I'll kind of get to that. So I was very discouraged. All of my friends were, doing the checklist life. They're have their careers, they're getting married, having children, and I can't seem to launch myself. I'm like, oh my gosh, I've spent all this time in school, and I've dedicated myself to my studies, and now suddenly there's nothing here. But I mean, I wasn't leaving without anything.
Yeah.
Having a degree in chemistry
that's something.
It is, absolutely. Yeah. And so I decided to move home. And I asked my parents, can I move home for a short period of time to figure out what I want to do? Because I was kind of like, I had no direction to go in. And they were like, absolutely, Glenda. And I thought, well, I'll save some money, and maybe I'll buy a house. I'll, save some money and buy a house. And at the time, I was working for Don and George at Three Oaks Grill part-time. And so I moved home. We thought it was going to be about 6 months. It turned into a little bit longer than that. But I moved home, and I thought it was going to be like just this great soul-searching thing. So for the first 6 months, I was okay with the challenge of not having the answer, what I wanted to do. But as the 6 months approached, that 6 month mark approached, I really started to kind of get a little concerned because nothing was coming to me. I was just like, if I could just figure out what I'm passionate about.
And I had that eureka moment.
Yes, yeah. I thought that was going to come, and it didn't. And I would spend the next year. So not only 6 months, it was a year and a half. I spent the next year and a half of my life after I decided I was not going to go to med school, trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And that would go from enthusiastic conversations with myself and God to sad, begging, pleading, praying moments, just me and my thoughts in my heart with the sun or the stars, whatever I was speaking to God, and really trying to soul search and figure out what I wanted to do. And nothing was coming to me. Even with all of those things, like day in, day out. It's almost like a Disney movie. I mean, it's just like, just this sad character, but I had not lost hope. And I remember my parents never once questioned me. Well, I say that. One time, my mom said to me, I cannot believe, because I was getting these offers for these big-time positions to move out of state great to work at in the chemical industry, in executive positions, because I was very savvy with being able to speak that language.
Yeah.
But I also was a people person, which those two are great in certain areas.
And rare.
Maybe not, but they really sought me out. And my mom, she's like, I cannot believe you're turning down this kind of money. And I said, I'm just not passionate about it. And my mom, she's like, that kind of money, I would dig ditches. I remember her exact words were like, I would dig ditches for that kind of money. And I said, I just want to do something that I'm passionate about, something that, that I don't even have to be good at in the beginning. That was kind of like my plea. I was just like, if I could discover what it is that I'm passionate about, I would eventually get good at it. That was my train of thought. And it didn't come. And so for a year and a half, it was kind of desperate. And I didn't really make on to anybody else that it was like this. But I had it since. In that period of time, Don and George asked me to come over to their restaurant, Napa Cafe. And I said, well, no, I'm not doing that. They asked me actually 4 times. And that was over a couple-month period of time. And I said, no. I said, I'm not doing that. That's not the direction I want to go in life. I'm trying to figure out what I want.
Had you ever been in the restaurant?
Oh, yes. Actually,
Okay.
What's so interesting is that I'm the one that helped write the manuals, the training manuals. I programmed the computers. I helped train the staff. I was there every day getting ready for the restaurant to open. They used to call me their good luck charm because I was very dedicated to them. I was hardworking. I knew how they wanted things to operate, but also always chimed in and put in my 2 cents, and they welcomed that. And so I actually helped open the restaurant. I was a key figure in opening Napa Cafe, which is kind of funny when you think about it now. But so they actually had to ask me,
Did you have this planned all along?
Right? Gosh, it kind of seems like it. I guess that's what happens when you have God in the plan, I guess. But so I had, they had called me. I think I actually met with them twice about it, and then 2 times over the phone they'd asked me, please consider this. And on the 5th phone call, Don called me and said, Glenda, I want to ask you about coming over to Napa. And I interrupted. He goes, no, don't interrupt me, hear me out. And I said, okay. And he goes, just name your price.
Wow.
Name whatever you want, whatever conditions, just think about it. While you're trying to figure out what you want to do, just consider coming over and we'll pay you whatever you want. And I said, well, it's never about money. And he said, I know it's not. He said, but it could be attractive while you figure out what you want to do. And I said, okay. So I thought about it. He said, I don't want to answer. He said, I'm going to call you again tomorrow. And so the next day he called me 24 hours later. And I said, okay, I came up with an idea. And he said, what's that? I said, well, I only want to work 3 days a week. I don't want to work on the weekends. And when I want to go out of town, I can go out of town. He's like, done. And I'm like, okay. And
most bosses would have said, get out of here.
No, he was like, absolutely. And then and I said, this is how much money I want him. I said, I want to be paid by the hour, and this is how much money. And he ended up paying me $5 more an hour than I asked for. And then he said, not only that, I'm going to pay for your health insurance, and you could eat at all the restaurants for free. So at the time, there was Downtown Grill in Oxford, there was Paulette's, of course, there was Napa, and there was Three Oaks Grill.
Wow, eat at all of them for free.
Mm-hmm. And he said, just whatever you want. And I said, okay. And so that's really that's how I came to Napa, to work there for a short period of time while I figured out what I was going to do with my life.
And what year is this?
That was in 2000.
So you're working your 3 days a week,
Mm-hmm.
but did you find that escalating into more hours?
Not at all.
So it stayed 3.
Mm-hmm. It stayed 3. And at the time, they had a general manager, and I worked, I think, 3 nights a week. I think I worked like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, or Monday. It was like sweet hours. I mean, it was really nice. And I was living at home, and I was able to save money. And then one day, I decided that I can't remember what it was. I remember seeing and I was cleaning out a filing cabinet in one of the offices, and I saw some pictures of when Bistro 122 was being built, which was the restaurant prior to Napa Cafe.
I remember it.
Yeah. And so there was just this, and these pictures just, I saw the life in these pictures. The people that were building the bar, that were moving in equipment, and all of these things. There was just something about it. I remember there was just this spark inside of me. And didn't think much about it, and I put the pictures back in the envelope and put them back in the filing cabinet, and didn't think much about it. Meantime, I'm living at home and trying to figure out what I want to do, and there was something that really kind of put me at the bottom of the barrel for what I was going to do in life. My backup plan was always to be in medical sales or pharmaceutical sales. That was great money. It was professional. It was all the things. And one of the people that I'd met through Napa Cafe, he was a pharmaceutical rep. He said, I really can't see you doing this. He's like, but come with me, meet me, and I'll take you out. And I said, okay. He said, make sure you get dressed up. It was July. And I got hair and makeup all done, wearing dress and heels and all of that. And we go, and it's like 100 degrees outside. We're getting in and out of these cars, and we're going in these offices and sitting there for
with
sometimes
sick people.
and sometimes for hours.
Yeah.
And I was like, what do we do? He's like, we just have to sit here and wait. I was like, I remember that day I went home, and I think I cried, because I was just like, there's no way I can do that.
Yeah.
For all the money in the world, I cannot sit and wait in an office for hours.
And do nothing.
Yeah. Do we need to go to a break?
No, we don't have a break.
Okay. I was like, well, is this okay? I'm sorry. Okay. Well,
They're just waving.
Well, I'm reliving the time,
Sure.
so I'm trying to stay in like what that was like. So just let me know if we need to take a break or a breath.
No,
Okay.
You're doing fine. Because you're actually, and we talked about this before, because you're talking about things we didn't talk about before, and you're thinking about some of these things for the first time since they actually happened.
Oh yes, I'm like reliving it.
Yeah.
I'm kind of feeling it. I'm in the moment.
So you just say, okay, this is out, but now you're kind of down again
Oh, my
because
gosh.
what's plan B?
There is no plan B, and I'm thinking, what is happening? And so I am I was living at home, and I left the house that day to go to work. And I'm on Winchester, coming up on 385. I'll never forget it as long as I live. And I am mad. And I slam my hands. I was like, Glenda, why can't you figure this out? This is pathetic. What's going on? And I slam my hands on the steering wheel going up that ramp, and I just say, and I'd never said this or thought this ever in my life, I slammed my hands on the steering wheel 3 times, and I said, say it out loud, Glenda. Say it out loud. What is it you want to do? Just say it out loud. What is it you want to do? Just say it right now. I slammed my hands, and I said, I want to own Napa Cafe. I'm not even kidding. I had never thought it. It was nothing that ever occurred to me, ever. And I was just like, a moment of like, what? I mean, it was like I was hearing it for the first time.
It's like your subconscious knew what you wanted to do, but you were not even thinking that, and all of a sudden it blurts it out. There you are.
And there was this thing that I had when I was living at home, and I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. There was never like a career path or a specific thing. I always said that I wanted 360 degrees of my life to get to come out and play every day. The intellectual side, the side where I want to learn how to be a great leader. I want to work with people. I want to be passionate about whatever it is that I'm doing. I want to be challenged. I want to have all of these, to have all of these feelings. And so the moment I said that in the car on the steering wheel, and I immediately thought, I want to own Napa Cafe, and I looked at it at 360 degrees, and I visualized it, and I was like, that's it. That is it. That is everything that I want. And I immediately grabbed my phone out of my purse, and I called Don, who was George Fall's partner, and I said, hey, because I didn't want to talk myself out of it. I said, I'm going to call him right now and see if they'll meet with me. And I immediately just was shaking because I went from like not knowing what I wanted to do and total just despair to that is it. It is the IT exclamation point. And so I called Dawn and I said, hey, I said, by any chance, could you and George meet me this week? And Dawn kind of flipped out. First of all, I'm calling on a cell phone. I don't even know if people really even talked on a cell phone back in 2000. But
I think they were.
Yeah, maybe a little bit. So he was like, where are you? And I said, well, I'm on my way to the restaurant. He goes, well, what is it you want to talk to me about? And I said, I really just want it to be something, in person. He said, is there something wrong? There has to be something wrong. I said, no, nothing's wrong. And he was really kind of panicked. And
because you'd never talked like this before.
No, I've never. And so he's like, well, I'm on my way. And I said, you're on your way to the restaurant now? He says, yeah, I'll see you in a few minutes, and hangs up the phone. And so now I'm on the interstate, and I get off on Poplar, and I went from literally not knowing what I wanted to do for the longest time to driving the Poplar. Got off on Poplar and got on Sanderlin and drove the loop, the Sanderlin Avenue and the Walnut Grove loop 3 times.
Wow.
And I went from 10 minutes prior slamming my hands on the steering wheel, kind of like anger and mad and all the things, to like the prayer of like, oh God, please let this be a possibility. I was like, this is it. I know this is it. This is everything that I want to do. Food, wine, service, restaurants.
People.
I mean, my first dining experience was at Justine's. I was passionate about restaurants, passionate about dining, and loved working for Don and George. Loved being in that business, but I never wanted to be in that business. That was not something that I ever saw for myself. And so when I was doing that loop, that Sanderlin Avenue, Walnut Grove loop, I was really just kind of like, oh my gosh, please let it be a possibility. I was just pleading, like, just let them say maybe, give me a maybe. And so I really didn't think about what I was going to say. I was like praying about like it being a possibility, because it was literally everything that I had been waiting for, that moment that I thought that was going to come a year prior. So I walked in the front door, and Don is standing there. And Don is this very tall man. He has very thick eyebrows.
Show him a wide shot inside the restaurant if you can, Rob, so you can
Are
see
we looking at it right now?
Yeah, you can see it on your monitor. There you go.
Okay, that is, yeah.
And so you go in the front door.
And so I'll go to the front door, and Don is standing there towering over me, and he's like, what is it you want to see me about? I'm like, oh my gosh. I said, I haven't even had a chance to even think about it. And he's like, which is very interesting. Someone said this the other day. I don't know if they listened to our radio show, but they made mention of something. How the two things I said at the same time. Don is standing there, and I said, well, I haven't even formulated this idea. I haven't even had a chance to think about it. He said, just say it. Just say it. What is it you want to talk to me about? And I've got like my bag and my purse in my hands. I said, I wanted to see if you and George would sell me the restaurant. And he's standing over me. He's like, what restaurant? And I said, Napa Cafe. He's like, it's not for sale. He's like, none of our restaurants are for sale. You mean to tell me this is what you wanted to meet me about? And I said, well, yes. I said, but he goes, I left an important meeting to come here. And I said, well, I actually didn't ask you to do that. You're the one that, And so he was really angry with me and kind of yelled at me. And so I immediately walked away and went and put my bag down in the office. And I sat down in the chair, and I was just like, oh my gosh, this is
not how you thought it was going to go.
This is awful. And so he comes into the office, and he says, I'm sorry I yelled at you. None of our restaurants are for sale. But because I have a partner, I have to tell him about this ridiculous conversation I just had with you.
He said ridiculous.
Yeah, just kind of think he was mad that it was even a thing. And so, everybody kind of knows the punchline because I own the restaurant. But there was, a whole set of circumstances that went into it. So Don leaves, and I don't really recall feeling anything. I don't remember that moment that night or the next day. I think I remember thinking like, this is what I want to do. I don't think that I gave up. I remember thinking like, this is it. This is what I want to do, and I'm going to figure it out.
So even if you didn't get Napa, you were going to do what you wanted to do?
No, it was Napa I wanted.
You still want,
it was
you haven't given up on that.
It was specifically Napa. And so
I think they probably figured out they might as well get out of the way because you're coming.
Right, I guess so. Kind of thinking about me, I can only imagine what I was like then. Just kind of, determined and fearless, because this was by this time, this is 2001. So September 11th just happened. Literally just happened.
Yeah.
And so 2 weeks later, they asked to meet with me on a Sunday. We were closed on Sundays, and we met in the private room. And they chatted with me for about an hour and a half. And I love this part of the story because this part of the story, I didn't figure out the rest of it until a few years ago. So when we're sitting there, and we talked for an hour and a half, and they were really kind of grilling me pretty hard. And I don't remember all the questions. But so, we left the meeting, and obviously I ended up buying the restaurant. But I did not find out something very important about that meeting until about 10 years ago. So I used to have all of the entrepreneur roundtable luncheons at Napa Cafe, and George was part of that. So I've owned the restaurant now for, at the time, probably 14 years. And George every month would attend these luncheons that were in my private room. And so one particular day, I come around the corner. He's got about 6 or 7 people in front of him. He says, "Hey, kid, come over here." He's like, "I'm telling them about me selling you this restaurant." I said, "Oh, what a great story." He goes, "I want you to come over there and tell them why I sold it to you." And I said, "Oh, yes." I said, "Well, it's a great story." I said, I started to tell the story about how I decided I wanted to buy it. And he goes, No. That's not why I sold you the restaurant." And I said, "I thought you sold me the restaurant because I asked to buy it from you." He says, "No." He's like, "You don't know why I sold you the restaurant?" And I remember my face turning red because we have a little audience in front of us. And I'm thinking, how do I not know this very specific part of the story? Because I'm the key central figure in it, and I know everything about it. Things that nobody else knows, too.
Yeah.
Lots of things. And so he says, he goes, "You don't remember that meeting that we had?" And I said, "Yes, sir." He says, "You don't remember the last question I asked you?" And I said, "No, sir, I don't." And so he proceeds to tell the story about how I met with them that Sunday and spoke with them for 2 hours and about this last question. So he goes, I proceed to ask her a bunch of questions. So we get to actually came to the last question. And I said, and he looked at me again and he said, "You seriously don't remember the last question?" I said, "No, sir, I don't." So he proceeds to kind of tell people about leading up to this question. He said, "So I'm telling her, asking her a bunch of questions, and I finally look at her and I said, "Glenda, why do you want to own Napa Cafe?" And I remember standing there in front of the crowd, and I was just like, "Oh my gosh, I do remember." He goes, "Oh, you remember now?" And I said, "I sure do." And so he says, I look at her and I say, "Why do you want to own Napa Cafe?" And he says it better than anybody. He said, "She looked me square in the eye and she said, without hesitation, because I think I can do it better than what you're doing." And, kind of the context of the whole conversation of that year, of that hour and a half, I don't want to come across a certain way, but I was 100% authentic myself, and I did not hesitate with that answer. And I'll never forget, and I finished it. And when he said that part, I said, "I remember what you said." He leaned back in his chair, and he says, "I think you can too."
Wow.
And that's why he sold it to me. So he didn't sell it to me because I wanted to buy it. That was part of it, obviously. But he was looking for that spark, that fire, that kind of oomph that you have to own a business.
Well, he admired you, too,
Yeah.
for showing that kind of spunk and determination. And he had seen enough of you to know that what you set your mind to, you could accomplish. And you thought of things he didn't think of, so he probably said, "She's right."
I think it was, thinking about that, it does so many things kind of line up. Even there's so many stories that kind of, I guess we're going to tell them on the podcast. I'm not sure, but if we're going to kind of do like we do with the radio show, but there's so many stories.
Yeah, because I want to kind of wrap up today with the fact that you've owned it for 17 years now.
Oh no, 20 going into 24 years.
24 years.
So
I mean,
23.
a lifetime.
Yes.
And it has done nothing but continue to grow. In fact, show another shot of this little wine room. I love your restaurant is beautiful. It's also very efficient. This is my favorite room. The last time we ate there was there, and you're in the wine room, and so you just take a cork out and sip a little bit so they don't know it's missing. And
well, and I tell people how I charge them is that we take a breathalyzer going in and take one going out.
But you just, and your whole staff, and when I walk in there now, your staff is always happy. They greet whoever walks in the bar. Hey, how's it going? Can we help you? You can tell, and I've done my restaurant show, my favorite restaurant, in well over 200 restaurants. You can tell the minute you walk in what the mood of that restaurant is. Is it a flat line, or is there energy and goodness there? And that's the way you feel when you walk into Napa Cafe.
I love you saying that. I pour everything I have into them. My team is everything. Nothing goes anywhere without them. So,
well, and that's why they stay with you, because why would they want to go anywhere else? I think you're a huge, great example to other, not just restaurateurs or people that want to be in the restaurant business, but to anybody wanting to start a business of their own, because you got to love it. Because you work harder now than you did 3 days a week when you were working part time.
I kind of love that. I love that you kind of have started asking me these questions, because I never thought about any of this. Really, what that was like, that soul searching and all of that went into, because everyone just thinks they walk into the restaurant, especially a lot of the employees, that it's just there. Yeah. And, a business, any business, and especially one that you want to do and something that you're passionate about, sometimes it takes that in the beginning. It may take a year and a half to figure that out. It may take, having the guts to do something. And just doing it. And because this is the thing, I say this to people. I love this part because I have to be able to tell everything that I just said in kind of one sentence. So I tell people that I bought a business that wasn't for sale and I didn't have any money. And that's the truth. And it's amazing what you can do when you see it. And, when you see it or feel it, you know it.
But you also said that you were listening to God, and
totally.
It's been my experience that if he doesn't want it to happen, it ain't going to happen, no matter how hard you beat on the door. And when it's supposed to happen, the doors just open for you. Mm-hmm. Is that kind of the way you felt about that?
Yes, that definitely made it challenging in some ways, because being new at doing it, and this is before I actually bought it, but absolutely, people just seem to show up. But you definitely have to take those initial steps. Well, don't think that you just can stand there and it's going to happen. No. Yeah,
you definitely have to participate.
For sure.
Well, we're going to have you back, because I want to pick up right here in part 2. Where because even the negotiation is very interesting, how that happened.
Yes.
And then your first year. So there's some great aspects to her story that we'll get into the next time we have her on. But thank you for coming in today and retelling a story. It's a fascinating story, and I think it's inspiring to anybody that hears it. Glenda Hastings, everybody.
Thank you.
Napa Cafe. Thank you. That's our show for today. We'll be back, and we'll definitely let you know when Glenda's coming back. See you later.